Hello, everybody. Welcome to Town Hall Tuesdays at 12 with me, your host, and hopefully your future commissioner, Christi Tasker. That's right, folks. I am the one running for Miami City Commission in District 2, and I am the only one who has called out old Sloppy Joe. Today, we are going to talk a lot about our parks because I know as City Commission, especially in District 2, you are most concerned about parks. So we're just going to dive right back into it. Well, I shouldn't say most concerned, but that is one of the biggest concerns in Miami as a whole because we have a lot of parks and very, very, very few really good, clean ones. So part of the District 2 job that I will be taking on in November, hopefully when you vote me in November the 7th, which I fully expect to be your commissioner this time, because I'm hearing on the streets that, listen, a lot of people are telling me that they wish they had voted for me before. So I'm just going to scan over. There are way too many parks for me to go over in one single episode. So I want to give you an idea of what I would do for various parks that are some of the most major parks throughout Miami, and hopefully give our downtowners some new parks to actually go to. So you'll have my take on the parks, what I would do for them. We went over Maurice Park and Bayfront Park in the downtown episode, so I'm not going to cover those today. And then we're going to be covering, and I also covered Alice Wainwright Park last week. So I'm going to start with David Kennedy Park today. We're going to go through Peacock Park and Douglas Park, along with Domino Park and other parks that you may not be aware of because some of them are actually closed. So let's just dive right into it. You're going to find all the photos from the parks directly on my Facebook page. So that is where you just go to facebook.com/Christi 4 Miami. So we're going to start out in what I think is a good park, because I would very much like to see all of our parks in Miami be much more like Merry Christmas Park. So Merry Christmas Park is a large park with large trees that has not been decimated by too many commissioners, because we've had citizens that have actually stood up for this park over the years. So we have large shade trees throughout, and we have benches under shade trees there. So just notice I said that, because as we go through some of the other parks, you're going to notice that some of our commissioners and the park planners evidently thought that all of you wanted to get out and get some sun while you go to the park and watch your dogs. So notice that we do have shade trees, and the benches are under shade trees. We have plenty of green grass with nothing on it, no sculptures, no anything else, because that's what we would like, right? Is to be able to just run and play with your kids, play ball, run on trails, take your children to batting practices, kick around a soccer ball with them. So this park actually gives you plenty of space to do that. There were a couple of odd things that I'm going to point out that I would change throughout this park. And that is, I would ask residents what they actually want to see underneath this particular canopy, or if it's benches that moms would like to see, because I thought this was really odd that there was a canopy and there's literally just a balance beam in the center. There's only one beam. So this kind of seemed a little odd. And not only that, but the turf was actually really dirty. The turf pretty much throughout all the parks are extremely dirty. From what I am hearing, because I cannot seem to find Sabina Covo's schedule or the Parks and Recreation schedule as to how often they're coming out cleaning. So I went around and asked residents, how often have you seen them out cleaning? Have you noticed the park being cleaned? At most, the parks are being cleaned once a month, according to residents, but they definitely need to be cleaned more often because there is a trash issue throughout a lot of the parks, not the ones that we're seeing now. But this is my idea of a good park. Just so you guys know, I'm originally from Georgia. I'm originally from North Georgia. And I lived there until I was 34 years old. And these are the type of parks my grandparents took me to. I would very, very much like to keep these parks and improve them in terms of, when I say improvement, just maintain them. Okay. Get a few extra, maybe another balance beam for your children who are maybe in ballet. Get them actually tools that they can, practice some of their skills on underneath that canopy. But for the most part, just keeping absolute green open space, because as you can see, people really enjoy this. They enjoy being able to kick a ball around without thinking that they're about to run into their neighbor. Okay, so that is Merry Christmas Park. So Merry Christmas Park would be one that we would keep pretty much right away and just leave alone. So I want to show you another good park that is not in District 2. Okay, so this is Sunrise Park. This is in Coral Gables. When I was going around, I was like thinking to myself, like, what can I do to show people what my idea of a good park is? Because I'm sorry to say, but I don't think, other than Merry Christmas Park, there was not really a great park that had the appropriate amount of shade trees where things were in the right places. So another park that I absolutely love, that I thought was a great inspiration for citizens of Miami, and I'd encourage all of you guys to go and enjoy these parks as well, even though it is in Coral Gables, it is very close to District 2 in the south. So this is Sunrise Park in Coral Gables, and I wanted to show you this because Sunrise Park has, water fountains throughout. They are actually working. They look very nice. They are in, areas where you can actually, they're very accessible. The park closes at sunset to sunrise. It is very clear. Their signage is very clear throughout, and it's absolutely exceptional. So they also have a great sign that says, please tell us about our parks. Okay, let me actually go and blow this one up. Yeah. So not only are their parks clearly labeled, but they have a sign. Here we go. Let me see. Let's blow this up a little bit. They say, tell us about our parks, so that you have an opportunity, exactly who to tell about the parks. There's a QR code here that you can scan, report any issues. This is definitely something we are missing throughout the parks. So a lot of people have told me, in various areas that, they don't really want to see big dogs, playing. Their children are afraid of big dogs. So this particular park says that, there are no animals except trained service animals. So that could be beneficial to some of our parks as well. That is something that I would be asking residents, just as I did when I was going through. For the most part, this park is almost all under shade, which is great. And then they also have canopies over the equipment to protect the equipment and to, so that children are not, even getting sun under the shade trees, whether that's necessary or not. That's actually it would be a very interesting question to the surrounding communities. I'm not saying it's necessary or it's not. But that is definitely something that I would ask. I do know that it would help keep the equipment a lot cleaner. The other thing that I liked about this park is that they actually had picnic tables under a gazebo-like setting. This could be really beautiful, especially if there were some wisteria and things growing over it. So that was one of the few changes that I would say, would be, interesting and could be really beautiful for the community. The other thing that they had were actually bike racks. A lot of our parks throughout city of Miami, I did not notice very many bike racks at all. So bike racks would definitely be something that I would consider installing or recommending for our parks. Along with our parks, also do not have a lot of parking. Okay, so the parking itself is very limited, whereas this particular park in Coral Gables actually is restricted for park visitors only. So Miami residents were telling me that they really wanted this as I would go to each park, because they would say there's absolutely no parking whatsoever. So that is definitely something that I would be recommending, is that we make sure that we have parks. I mean, we have parking for our parks. When it comes to the parks and benches, a lot of more people wanted to see a lot more benches. I understand there is a problem with homelessness and homeless actually sleeping on benches. So I know that that is a huge problem. Oh, welcome everybody. Welcome Gladys and Dolores and Haley. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and saying, hey. A community park to me, Gladys says, is a playground area, a walkway for healthy people to walk, bathrooms, activities for kids to play after school. That is exactly right. Mine too, Gladys, and plenty of open space. I put this image in not to embarrass Coral Gables at all, but I wanted to show you guys like what they do when there is an issue. They clearly identify it. They mark it with a caution tape, because City of Miami, we're not doing this right now, which is a huge problem. So that's definitely something that I will be talking to our staff, our parks and recreation staff, is regarding taking care of things. And I also wanted this photo in so that you guys could see that, a lot of people complain about basketball courts. Okay. A lot of people play basketball. A lot of people are telling me they want basketball courts. That does not mean we have to have a full court on basketball. Okay. If there's not space for full court, we cannot have a small half court. It can also be covered under trees as well, just as this one is. I thought this was a very classy, it's, painted green, it blends in. You don't really even know it's there. But yet it is. So, yes, Gladys is right. This park definitely does a good job of showing us exactly what a good park is. So I wanted to show you my disgust with Miami parks. Okay. So this is directly around the corner from a park that is closed. So it's around the corner from Domino Park, even though the kids couldn't really play basketball in Domino Park. But this is one of the reasons I'm saying we can have half court, because there were literally 5 kids out playing in the street. I mean, I think that this should be an embarrassment for all citizens of Miami. This is right around the corner from Grand Avenue. And I would not want your kids playing in the street. I would much prefer that we have a basketball court somewhere close by where children can go and play. I think it's disgusting that they would have to play in the street to begin with. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that they should, do you think that's a problem? Am I making a big deal out of nothing? Feel free to tell me if you think that I am. I mean, I just thought it was, not only kind of dangerous, but I give our parks as a whole right now a thumbs down. Many of our parks are being run in the form of trusts. And then we have valuable parks such as Billy Royale Park, the Domino Park, is actually completely closed. And not only is it completely closed, but it's like unmanaged, unmaintained. It's like we're just waiting for it to dilapidate. From even the street signs, the signs as you go in. And this is directly on Grand Avenue. I think it's an absolute embarrassment for all of Coconut Grove that this park, the fencing is not painted. And when fencing and things don't get painted, it starts to corrode and just looks completely just horribly bad. So, obviously we had rules and regulations out that this park even closed at dusk or at 5 p.m. I think you could probably get a little bit more use out of this park with it closing, a little bit later with, some lighting, like even on the tables and things. But that's to be determined. But regardless, there's like no grass here. It's not even been as much as pressure washed. And it's my understanding this had become a homeless encampment, but there are ways to prevent homeless encampments and drug deals going on in the parks. Number one, this park already has surveillance. So I'm trying to figure out like why we would have, closed it to begin with. So I saw an opportunity to reopen this park pretty much almost immediately within my first week in office. This would be one of the first things that, I would have a team out to see if we could get this rectified and back open, because again, we've already got the surveillance. The trees are not even being taken care of, and as we all know, how valuable our trees are, and at minimum we can clean it up. Okay. So if any of you know any more details about this park, please feel free to let us know what you think, because I believe that these are completely underserved neighborhoods and they're getting absolutely no attention. And there's a possibility that they just don't know where to go. And I'm actually shocked that any of my competitors would be okay with this, and would have even gone any months in office without this being corrected, especially considering the trash can right outside basically has the Coconut Grove business bid district. So they know that it exists. They know how dirty it is. And they just didn't even bother to clean it up. I mean, so to close it down and not clean it up is, to me, even like more disgusting. But here's what's happening as we go through things and we don't paint. Obviously, we know we're in Miami and things do rust. So whenever they rust, it actually costs us a lot more money to maintain as a whole. So here's what the park looks like. The domino tables, they appear to be in fine shape, other than they are just dirty, to be really honest with you. So everything just appeared to be really dirty. There was, not a lot of grass or any kind of plant material, which would absorb water, which could also help with potential flooding. If there's any flooding in this area, that could help. And then awkwardly, our tax dollars have gone to like little areas like this. I mean, maybe I'm just completely delusional, but I've cannot figure out for the life of me why in the world we would need this patch of plastic bark glued to the outside of this tree. I mean, listen, I'm no horticulturist, but maybe one of you may know this, but this make absolutely no sense to me, and I'm sure we paid for it along the way. So those are things that look like it can be eliminated. All the trees like up on this upper level. I mean, so this is not a tripping hazard. This is not an area where people walk. So I think that could be eliminated. I would say that I would call that most likely our tax dollars were wasted in the terms of the parks. I'm going to go over this. I went over drainage and everything in prior videos. I'm going to go over one specifically regarding the flooding throughout Miami and ways that we can prevent that. Although I went over it in downtown pretty extensively when I did the downtown town hall. But this is an example of our drains are actually, this is the type of drain that we actually need throughout the city. So I wanted to make sure you guys knew this. Notice it has a cover on it. The ones that I would be advocating for would actually have smaller holes so that larger things such as plastic lids and things could not actually go down in the drain. You notice, fortunately, this drain kept a wheel from going down in it, whereas some of our drains, believe it or not, are completely open. So this is a drain that is between parking spaces and the sidewalk itself. So it is a flat drain. There are, right around the corner from this Domino Park. I mean, obviously the drug dealers there have been a huge problem. We should have a drug enforcement team out to help with the drugs. I have a feeling if we had called in the DEA, they would help us out with the drugs in the area. You can see that I can't imagine that it's rug dealers, but maybe I'm wrong there too. Maybe we're having a problem with rug dealers in this area, but they have gone through and pretty much X'd out all the D's on everything. So it's kind of funny, but not really. So thank you all for participating today. I'm going to go on to Kennedy Park. So let's go to Kennedy Park. Kennedy Park has dog parks and people parks, which is great. A lot of people are out enjoying the park as a whole. And there are two different parks. There's a park for large dogs and there's a park for small dogs. So the park for small dogs, some of the owners were telling me that they do have a slight problem with the large dogs kind of coming into their park. That was one of their concerns. The other concern is that the benches are not underneath shade trees. So whenever they are watching their dogs, they are having to sit out in the sun, as you can see. So there is like a little tiki hut, one little tiki hut like over in the corner. But one of the things that I've noticed at other dog parks is that dog lovers really, I should actually bring this up. I'm showing you guys things and you're not seeing it because I failed to share my screen here. Okay, so here's what I was saying with the dog park itself. Let's actually go back to the front of it. So this is the 25 pounds and under dog park within Kennedy Park. So within Kennedy Park, you can see that the benches are out in the sun. There's no shade tree. So the dog owners were telling me that most of the time they just stand underneath the shade trees. They're kind of, standing up. Some of them say that they exercise themselves, whereas at other dog parks that are, more communicative, where dog owners are more communicative with each other, there is typically like a really nice area where dog owners can kind of even like sit around in a circle and have a conversation if they want to. Because, I'm not saying it's boring to go out and watch your dog play with other dogs, but, it's definitely a good time to be able to communicate with your neighbors. So they definitely wanted more shady spots to sit in. So like, for instance, over here would have been a great spot for the benches to either be moved. And then that would also give a little bit more area for the dogs to actually run and play. How about a doggy park area with, hold on, let's see. Gladys, you're saying, Kennedy Park. Dolores is saying Kennedy Park needs more parking areas and traffic controls. That is correct, Dolores. So what I was saying earlier too is there's no one really monitoring the parking in Miami parks. So residents are telling me that people can just come and park all day and there's no one monitoring that. So that would be a huge issue. And Pamela, you're right. The Kennedy Park has some major flooding issues when it rains because there is no drainage at Kennedy Park. So in the Coconut Grove Town Hall that I did last week, we discussed the major flooding issues when it rains at Kennedy Park. So make sure that you guys go back and catch that one. And then the parking areas, I would control that through just making sure that it says park use only. That would help tremendously. And you're right, getting more parking spaces would also help. The other side with Kennedy Park, the other idea that I have is to, Kennedy Park actually opens out near another parking area, is to, see if we can make something happen with the other side where people can park and actually enter on both sides of the park instead of just the one area. The other thing that I noticed about Kennedy Park is the lemonade stand. People absolutely love it. The lemonade stand was backed up in the park. As far as patrons coming to get their lemonades and stuff, which I think is absolutely fantastic. It keeps people in the park. I don't know if that person or that vendor is paying the park a fee at this very moment. I cannot find where they are or are not, because the city does not seem to have a list of business licenses that they can provide. So that's another topic for another day. The other thing regarding Kennedy Park that I would have definitely changed, because anytime you're dealing with black, it's going to attract heat. We don't need to attract any more heat in Miami. So any of these cushy walk trails can either be done in a lighter color or just green so that they blend in. I think we all know where the walk trails are and the walk paths are, and it would have looked much nicer, in my opinion, in green, basically in grass green, so that it just blends right in, and it would not have attracted so much heat, because a lot of people were getting extremely hot in Kennedy Park because the majority of the walk space is not in the shade. So we would definitely have more shade throughout Kennedy Park. Let's see, what else do we have? Let me actually see what other pieces I posted. We're at 12:30 right now, so I'm not going to go over any other parks at this very moment. There are at least a dozen other parks that I have to go over later, but I'm going to try to keep these around 30 minutes. Does anybody have any questions whatsoever? If you visit Fern Isle Park in District 1, they have really great amenities, Gladys is saying. Thank you, Gladys. Thank you for letting me know that, because that would be great to, have everybody take a visit to the parks that I've mentioned, to the ones that you mentioned, so that, we have a better understanding of what the capabilities are and what actually works. So Pamela says the paths might be made of recycled tires, as they saw in Amicalola Falls State Park. That is correct. But they can still, even with recycled tires, that can actually be recolored, believe it or not. So the recycled tires materials can be recolored in most cases, because it was extremely hot. And a lot of the elderly people were telling me that they would, that it was just sometimes too hot for them to walk. And I noticed a difference. I could feel a difference in temperature of just getting on the grass versus getting on the walk paths, the black walk paths. So that is something we would definitely have to look into for sure, in terms of, what the capabilities are. And I'm not saying I would go and change this. I'm just saying what I would have done differently from day one, because I'm not about like spending money that we don't have to spend right away, but I am about thinking for the future of what could make our park areas better, what can preserve the trees and the canopies that we do have, how we can better utilize the parks, how we can actually prevent putting a lot of things in the parks. We need swing areas. People typically like those in the shade. So whenever we have the opportunity to obviously save trees, such as, and I'll say to everybody, come to Alice Wainwright Park and see all the trees that were pulled out. It is now extremely hot in that park. It was super peaceful, super cool. And you could actually sit at picnic tables that were directly on the water. And now we have lost almost every tree canopy, and geotechnical engineers begged Ken Russell not to take the trees out, not to allow them to, but he did. So when it comes to the city as a whole, your city commissioner has a great deal of advocating to do when it comes to issues such as this. So there are a lot of vacant land pieces throughout the city of Miami that could be utilized for parks, for dog parks throughout downtown and Brickell, because I'm hearing a lot from Brickell and downtown that we need a lot more parks, and I agree with you 100%. There are little tiny parks that I'm going to be showing you throughout Coconut Grove that. And you can follow some of this on my social media. So make sure that you are subscribed on Facebook and Twitter. So hold on just a second. Let me make sure I've got all the questions. Make sure you're subscribed to make sure that you can come online and see what's actually available, because I'm getting an inventory list of all of the land that is available in downtown and Brickell, to find out where we could potentially put new parks that people may not have thought of, based on people who have not paid their taxes. If they have not paid their taxes, the city there is avenues for the city to be able to utilize that land for public use. So, that's something that I'm very interested in doing. So if you guys have any question regarding, what I think is a good park, or specific areas, there's the dog park in Coconut Grove that is only being cleaned once a month. So that dog park would be cleaned much more often. It's supposed to be cleaned and sanitized once a week, based on the turf that they're utilizing. Residents are telling me at most it's being cleaned once a month right now. I noticed that the fencing and the railing and stuff was extremely dirty. Those are basic things that we should be able to clean up on a weekly basis. Okay. Because, when it comes to cleanliness, I am very clean. I'm very cleanly. And I actually walk the parks myself. I walk the parks, I take photos, and I will be doing the same as your commissioner. I will be, that will be my form of exercise. I'm also really great with the community. I've gotten to know, a lot of people by going to parks and going to different parks. And, I look forward to, making positive change and getting the parks in the disenfranchised communities also reopened, because we should be ashamed of ourselves for not doing so. It looks like we have one more comment. A great park dependent on the input of many people that use the parks. Yes, that is correct. Yeah, my mom is a part of the 2030 and 2040 master plan for the city of Swanee, Georgia, that did result in the town center park, which is beautiful, well maintained, and well used. That is correct. And there was lots of city input on that. Speaking of the input, what I have noticed is when there are input meetings, there are very few residents that show up to the meetings. I would be doing those actually online, because I think a lot of the residents, it takes a lot of time to plan these events. And I feel like a lot of times they're being promoted for the commissioners themselves, or they tend to get out and do them whenever it is campaign time. And instead of, doing it to whatever's convenient for residents. So I'm curious to all of your thoughts. And it's not that I wouldn't go to the parks and do that, but I'm also curious, would you like to be able to participate online and basically be able to vote up or down any of the items that you would like to see? Because one of the park and recreation guys that's responsible for planning, I don't want to mention people's names, but he's responsible for the architectural planning of the parks. I was one of the only ones to tell him that whenever you have like pickleball, we have to be careful of north to south, east to west. He had thought of it, but he says that no one else had bothered to ask him. So just little simple things like that are not being covered right now. And those are critical, because we're all paying money to be a part to be a part of the community, and we want to be able to use like the pickleball courts. And if the direction of the pickleball court is positioned the wrong way, believe it or not, it will almost be impossible to use, because you'll have sun in your eyes in one way or another. Let's see if anybody else has any other questions. Yes. Okay. So that we covered that, Pam, the recycled tires, mom, Pam. So that is my mom. Yeah. So Gladys said to make sure you visit Fern Isle Park in District 1 for the good amenities. And yes, how about a dog park area with, yeah. So you could have a dog park area. Absolutely. So dog park areas are critical for people in Miami, because most people have pets these days. So yes, and cleaning up the tables and dominoes parks, yeah, can be very easily done. Mom, listen, I could put you in that park for probably 2 or 3 days, and that park would be like spick and span. And honestly, those are the kind of things that I will do. The neighborhoods are underserved, Barbara, and they're getting no attention. It's actually disgusting. I find it very disgusting, because the same people are going to those people asking them for their votes, and then they don't clean up the parks. It's kind of gross. Okay, so it looks like that is all. I'm going to sign off now. Thank you very much for taking time to care about your community and our parks. Please feel free to continue to comment. If you are watching this video after the live, I will try to make sure to cover your comments on the next Town Hall Tuesday at 12. I do these on Tuesdays at 12 because I find that it's within a lot of people's lunch breaks and it's very easy for them to tune in during lunch. So thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate all of you for taking time to care about the community, and God bless you all. Please make sure that you go on to Christi for Miami, and that's the number 4. So it's CHRISTI, the number 4 Miami.com. Make sure that you subscribe so that you get notifications of all the event notices, and make sure that you do follow me on social media as well. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Bye-bye.